Hello, class. Today we're going to talk about exercise 7.2, and this is in chapter 7 of our book, which is all about preparing the data. So, why do we need to prepare the data? So, as you've been learning the past few weeks, data is rarely analysis ready. So typically, we have to take a look at that data. We have to clean columns. We have to find like meaningful pieces of information. And sometimes the data that we have is not stored in the way that we would like it to be. I remember, I don't know, 20 years ago, I had to create a program that exported a particular field from what was in a blob data type, which is basically just a free-form text file with many, many characters. And everything was a mess. And I basically had to write a program to go into every single one of those blob fields to locate a particular aspect of that data and then extract that and put it into its own data column for me to do anything with it. It took me quite a while to actually get meaningful data that I needed to export to a new system. So it's very, very common, and this is why it's so important that we need people that are capable of working with the data instead of just expecting to have a data set that is in, a wonderful format for us to just work with. Okay, so yes, a lot of times we need to clean those columns. We need to drop data that isn't important. We need to restructure our data, and this walks us through a data prep workflow, which is first we have to understand what the data is that we have, and then maybe create some different variables to get the data that we want, get rid of bad data, and reshape the data set. Okay, so we're going to start 7.2 by loading our data set. I'm working with Google Colab right now, and just because it's easy for me to work with, I went to File, Upload Notebook, and I uploaded the starting file from our textbook, and then I went over on the side here to the File Explorer, which opened up this right side navigation, and I clicked the upload, and I uploaded the cars.csv file. So once I have that, I ran these first three steps: import pandas, read in the cars.csv file, and then the very first step that you have to do here is do the head to display the first 5 rows to give us an idea of what we have. So that's where I am in the process. Okay, so before we change anything, we have to inspect the data, and that's what that head statement is doing. In this case, we're just by default, we'll look at the first 5 rows. We're taking a look at the column names. We're looking at any problems that we might see here with the way that the data is formatted. Everything looks pretty good from these first 5 rows that I'm looking at. And what we're going to be focusing on here is the car name column. So the car name column, let's take a look at how this is structured. So in order to get a feel for that, we need to display the unique values of the car name column. So we run the command. Oh, look at Google Colab is doing that for me. So car name unique. So we'll go ahead, and that's exactly what we're looking for here. And we're going to get an array that is returned, and we will see all of the different names such as Volkswagen Rabbit, Toyota Corolla, etc., etc. So these are all of the different car names that are represented in this CSV file. The brand name is the first word. So we have Toyota, and then we have the model of the car. So you see that all of these car names are a combination of the brand name and then the car name. So what we want to do is we want to add a column for the brand by using lambda. And what we're going to do is we're just going to extract the first word from the car name column. And what that's going to look like is very similar to this. So cars, we're going to call it brand, and then cars again, car name. Make sure you get that exactly correct with the case, and then apply lambda x colon x dot split, and we're just going to split that on an empty and 0. Okay, so the apply will run the function on every row, and lambda x with a colon means for each value. So it's basically like a for loop, and then the x dot split 0 is going to grab the first word. So that 0 is referring to the index of the first aspect of that string. Okay, and then we are going to, let's just do cars.head again. Let's check our work, see what that looks like. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have an index error. Tuple index out of range. Okay, so we know that out of range basically means that we're trying to reference something that is not there. So I'm just going to pause for a second and take a look at what I might be missing here. Okay, so when we get an error, a lot of times our first thought is to assume that we have done something wrong. But as we know, an index error is just referencing something that doesn't exist. So that could be that we have an empty car name value, and that when it's trying to reference something, there is nothing there to look at. Now, if I take a look at these unique values here, trying to see if I see an obvious empty one, what we can do is we can make a slightly different command that will help us so that we don't have to run into this type of problem again. Okay, so I'm going to edit the lambda here, and I'm going to do something slightly different. And I'm going to say cars, car name, and then instead of apply lambda, I'm going to say string dot split string 0. I'm going to see if that solves our problem for us. Okay, much better. So again, when you see those errors, don't just automatically assume that there's something wrong with your code. Okay, so it could just be, and in this case, this is a very real world scenario that we end up with some data that isn't meeting our requirements here. So we have a workaround here, and we have our column of brand, and we can see all of our brands. So that works out very well. Okay, so let's go back to the next step. So now we need to add a column for the model. Sorry about that. My MacBook wants to be loud. Okay, so in this next one, we're going to create a user-defined function. And Google Colab is so nice and helpful, wants to help us with this. So let's go ahead and say define get model name, car name. And then return space dot join car name dot split. Yes, that's exactly what we're looking at. So there is our function. Make sure we go back from our indentation. And then we're going to say cars model equals cars, car name, apply get model. Yep, that's exactly what we want. So I'm just going to hit tab and that will apply the suggested code. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this. And here's our car name. So we still have that car name. Notice that we're not changing that value. We're just making our own columns that is extracting data from that original column. So we have our brand name, we have our model. That all looks good. Notice that these are basically the same model, but you notice our data is not in the same format. Okay, so split will separate words by default on a space. You can put in whatever you might want to use instead. And then our one and colon means everything after the first word. So it's going to take whatever we have. So if there happens to be a very long model name with multiple words, it will grab that. And then the join will put the name back together. So we can use lambda for simple logic, and we can define our own functions for more reusable logic. Okay, so that is that one. The next one is to drop the car name and car ID columns. So now that we've gotten the data that we really need out of this, we don't need the car name anymore. And we don't need the car ID because that is just an identifier and isn't going to help us with anything. So again, thank you, Google Colab. We are doing exactly very similar to this. So we're going to say cars equals cars.drop. And we're going to put in the car name, comma, car ID. And again, make sure we're putting those in exactly as they are written. And then square bracket, comma, axis equals 1. Axis equals 1. Remember that means to drop the columns, not the rows. And in data prep, we often remove redundant fields just so that we have a more succinct data set to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. All right, what did I get? Oh, car ID. Do you see the problem here? I didn't put those inside quotation marks. So again, it's okay to run into errors. They're teaching moments for you to be able to understand the syntax better and identify where your problems might be. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and filter and restructure the data. We're going to filter for the Volkswagen brand, and then we're going to make the restructuring easier to see with just that particular brand. Okay, so let's go ahead and start here. All right, so cars filtered equals cars brand. I guess it's good to have these nice comments in here because these are the reasons that our suggested code is working so well. Right. And make sure to spell Volkswagen the way it is spelled in here. And pay close attention to that syntax. So we want model, comma, horsepower. These are all names within quotations. Oops, I did it again. Car body and door number. And then we're going to say cars, yep, filtered head. I guess all these comments, I'm just going to go ahead and put them at the top. Keep my stuff nice. And then we'll run this. All right, so here we go with our Volkswagen. So we're filtering where the brand equals Volkswagen, selecting only our relevant columns, which makes our data set much smaller and easier to reshape. Now we're going to go ahead and create a hierarchical index. And let's go ahead and do that. So cars indexed equals cars filtered dot set index. And then we're going to say model car body and door number. And then we're going to go ahead and, why do I keep saying cards? Cards indexed. All right, we'll go ahead and run that. Okay, so now we have model, car body, door number, and this will allow us to pivot the car body level so it becomes columns. Okay, so let's do that next. So cars unstacked equals cars indexed, car body, cars unstacked. Yep. And all right, so car body has moved from the index row index to the column level. And we now have columns like horsepower for sedan and horsepower for wagon. Pandas will insert a NaN, which is not a number. So what we did here is we took a look at the raw data. We structured our variables from text from a string text file that contained both the car brand and the car model. We removed redundant columns. We filtered for a particular subset of data. We built a hierarchical index, and we reshaped the data using unstack. Okay, so that is what you will want to do for example 7.2. Hope this has been helpful. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.